Welcome, everyone, and Shabbat Shalom. So glad to have you with us here at Ahavat Shalom. Welcome to all of you who are watching the broadcast from at home. I'm Rabbi Matt Berger, and it's a little bit different from last week. Last week we had a full band, and it was a lot of fun. But this week we have Jacob Dauman, who will be becoming a bar mitzvah this Shabbat. Very exciting, and we welcome the extended Dauman family to the area and to our congregation. I'm also joined on the bima with our soloist, Allison Rosoff, and down at the piano, Joy Katzen-Guthrie. Today we also note the observance of International Holocaust Remembrance Day, which honors the memory of the 6 million Jews who perished during the Shoah, the victims, along with millions of others who were victims of the Nazi regime, as well as the ordinary people made extraordinary through their survival. It's always our sacred obligation, a mitzvah, to remember. We'll begin with the singing of Hine Matov from the Psalms, How Good It Is to Be Together. You'll find this song on the screens, as well as on page 10 of the prayer book called Mishkan Tefillah, Dwelling Place of Prayer. Hine matovu manai shevet achim gam yachad. 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 My pleasure at this time. As we prepare to light the Shabbat candles, first we'll be singing Debbie Friedman's Light These Lights, but my pleasure to call forward to help us light the two candles for Shabbat, Lauren Dauman, Jacob's sister, and great Aunt Hilda to come forward. Hear my prayer to you. Let us light these lights and see the way to you, and let us say Amen. Let us light these lights and see the way to you, and let us say Amen. Those with very sharp eyes might notice the change in candlesticks. This is a Dowman family heirloom, which is about 100 years old, these beautiful golden candlesticks. How about this? Watch. Yep, we'll do it together. There you go. Elohim. Amen. Blessed are you, Adonai, God, sovereign Spirit of the world, has commanded us to kindle the lights of Shabbat. Shabbat shalom to you and Mazel tov. But Lauren, I'm going to ask you to stay up here as Hilda goes back to her seat, because you can come a little bit closer. Very special occasion. Your parents asked if you could have a naming ceremony. It's never too late to get your Hebrew name. Never too late. So, we say, source of all life and blessing, God, grant us the blessing of reaching this moment. Your parents and your family have spent so much time raising you, loving you, supporting you, and we ask God to extend God's shelter over you, to protect you, to keep you healthy, to keep you wise, and to keep you strong. You have a very, very special name, and your name, your Hebrew name, is Leora Fagel, bat David Udvora Rachel. You're named after your grandfather, Leonard. So Leora means light, has the same root as the word menorah, like the Hanukkah menorah, which we light every December. And you're also named after your late grandmother, Frida. And Fagel is a Yiddish word meaning bird. So light and a bird. In the Talmud, which is a large grouping of laws and stories about the Jewish people, there's a very special blessing that I'd like to share with you. And it goes like this: may you live to see your world fulfilled. May you trust in generations past and yet to be. May your heart be filled with intuition and your eyes with insight. May you grow in strength and wisdom each day of your life. As we say together, Amen. There's a very special blessing called the Misha Berach. Sometimes we say a Misha Berach if somebody is ill or they need strength, but we can also say a Misha Berach thanking God for special moments. Misha Berach Avotenu, Avraham, Yitzhak v'Yaakov v'Imotenu, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel v'Leah. May God, who bless our ancestors, the patriarchs and the matriarchs, bless you, Lauren, with your new Hebrew name, Leora Fagel. May you live to give honor to your parents, be a blessing to the community wherever you live, and may you also give glory to God. For reaching this moment, we share the words of the Shechianu together, thanking God for allowing us to reach this moment in time in your life. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehianu v'kimanu v'higianu l'zman hazeh. Here's her beautiful naming certificate, which has a selection, a passage from the book of Exodus, which Jacob will be reading from the scroll tomorrow morning. We'll go with our young and with our old, with our sons and with our daughters. You say, Mazel Tov to you. Congratulations. There you go. We'll continue now in our prayer book with classic Kabbalat Shabbat song, Shalom Aleichem. You can follow along on the screens. Also on page 24, Peace to You, Messengers of the Most High. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei HaSharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Lachem L'Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Archuni leShalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Melech, Malachei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Seitchem l'Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech, Malachei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Our segue to the next part of our service, Shema and its blessings, is found on page 26, Half Kaddish Words of Praise.
Yitkadal v'yitkadash Shmei Rabbah.
Amen.
V'yamad yivrach yirtei v'yamlich malchutei b'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei shechol beit Yisrael b'gala b'gala u'v'yizman kariv v'yimaru amen. Yishmei Rabbah mevarach lehalam la meyamaya yitbarach yitbarach v'yidnasei v'yidhadar v'yidalev v'yidhalal shemei dekudesha brichu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata damira be'ama v'yimaru amen.
Let's rise for our call to prayer, the Baruch Hu. Baruch hu et Adonai Adonai Amivorach Le'olam Va'ed. Yai lai lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai yai lai 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 lai, yai lai lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai. Let's continue together. You'll find a prayer for creation on page 31 called Ma'ariv Aravim. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'ma'ariv Aravim. And feel free to join me on the middle of page 33, a prayer of love called Ahavat Olam. Wisdom and wonder, passion and instruction, story and symbol. All these things your Torah gives to us. And the more we devote ourselves to it, the more it grows and gives. What could be a truer token of your abiding love than this holiest of your works in the living language that gives it form? Baruch atah Adonai Ohev Amo Yisrael. And we'll sing Open Up Our Eyes together. Open up our eyes, teach us how to live. Fill our hearts with joy and all the love you have to give. Gather us in peace as you lead us to your name, and we will know that you are one. Open up our eyes.
Teach us how to live.
Teach us how to live. Fill our hearts with joy and all the love you have to give. Gather us in peace as you lead us to your name, and we will know that you are one, and we will know that you are one. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto. Le'olam va'ed. Feel free to be seated. We'll continue chanting the words of the Shema, the words of the Hafta. You shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your mind, and with all your soul, on page 36. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol levavcha v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol me'otecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavcha hayom al levavecha Vishinantam levanecha, dibarta bam, v'shivtecha b'veitecha, uvlechtecha v'derech, u'shoftecha uvkumecha, u'kshartam le'ot ayadecha, v'hayu letotafot bein einecha, uchtavtam al misuzot beitecha, uvisharecha, leman tizkeru, vasitem et kol mitzvotai, vitem kedoshim le'Elohechem. Ani Adonai Elohechem, asher otzeiti etchem me'aretz Mitzrayim, liot lachem Elohim. Ani Adonai Elohechem. Please join me on 39 as we prepare for our prayer, Freedom Michamocha. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we are taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness. There is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together. Who is like you is found on page 40. We'll continue on page 42 with the prayer of shelter called Hashkivenu.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leShalom Le'amideinu Shomreinu Le'chaim
My pleasure at this time to call upon our Bar Mitzvah, Jacob Dowman, who will be leading us in the opening prayers of the Tefillah. Our standing prayers, which begin on page 46. Please rise.
Adonai, Sefer Tativ Tav, Ufi Yagit Tehilateha. Adonai, open up my lips, down my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Velohei Avotenu V'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzhak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Zara, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, El Hagadol, Hagibor, V'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Vigonei HaKol, V'Zocher Hasdei Avot V'Imachot, Umevi Gelula Livnei V'Nechem, Leman Shemo Be'achava, Melech Ozer Umashiach Umagen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham V'Ezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechaye HaKol Atarav Lehoshia, Mashiv HaRuach Umerid HaGashem, Mechalkel Chaim Bechesed, Mechaye HaKol Berachamim Rabim, Zomech Noflim Verofei Cholim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayem Emunatov Lishenei Afar, Michamoha Baal Giverot, Umidom Elah, Melech Memid, Umekayem, Umatmiya Yeshua, Neman atah l'chayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechaye hakol.
Ata kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kadoshim b'chol yom yalu chased Baruch atah Adonai ha'el hakadosh. Feel free to be seated. Let's all say Yasher Koach, which is great job in Hebrew, to Jacob, and we'll be calling him back once again toward the end of the service. We'll continue with the last four blessings now of the tefillah. The first is for the holiness of this day of Shabbat. Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat. And our thoughts that God should always be with us wherever we are, here in America, in Zion, or in Israel. Baruch atah Adonai HaMachazir Shechinato L'Tzion. And we'll share words of gratitude that you'll find on page 59 for the blessing of families coming together to celebrate important moments and times of joy for simchas. We offer this prayer, Baruch atah Adonai Hatov Shimcha Ucha Na'eh Lechodot. And for our moments of reflection, we offer the words of Birkat Shalom, blessing of peace, found on page 60.
Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim
Blessed are you, Adonai, who blesses your people, Israel, and the world with peace. Baruch atah Adonai, hamvarech et amo Yisrael, b'shalom. Turning now to the middle of our prayer books on 253, you'll find the words to a modern version of our healing prayer, Mi Sheberach, as we call to mind and to heart individuals in our community and beyond who are in need of strength and healing at this time. We think of Jacqueline Albin, Yonatan Ruven Ben Rivka, Charlie Burke, Babs Brown, Tim Berneman, Manuel Cruz, Danielle DeVicente, Matthew Deinhardt, Corinne Fairfield, Harry Fleisch, Denise Freifeld, Mitchell Freifeld, Sidel Freifeld, Rabbi Gary Klein, Melissa Miller, William Miller, Michael Ranzino, Rabbi Avram Reifer, Gary Rosenberg, Stephanie Ross, Kay Schleich, Dennis Schulman, Jeff Stark, and Sophia Young. If there are any other names you'd like to add at this time, feel free.
My father, George Stark. Mishebeirach avotenu mikor habracha limotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mishebeirach imotenu mikor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say
Many decades ago, I was a young boy living in Longmeadow, Massachusetts, a New Englander. I like to play all types of sports. I like to spend time with friends and watch TV after school. I also practiced the piano a lot back then, too. There weren't hundreds of channels like they have today, but there were plenty of good ones to choose from. But without a doubt, my favorite was PBS, good old public television straight out of WGBY in Boston. PBS showed a lot of my favorite shows when I was a kid, like Zoom, another one called Electric Company, some of you might have watched it, and my favorite, bar none, Sesame Street. My mom would tell me that I was, quote, glued to the TV whenever Big Bird, Oscar the Grouch, Grover, and the rest of the cast were on screen, and this only intensified when she took me to an event in nearby Springfield, which featured many actors from the show. Here's a classic look at the cast and the lineup with the furry friends and then the real people as well. Evidently, at this live audience with the cast, Linda, who is one of the long-standing members of the show, gave me a kiss on the cheek. And when I came home, I exclaimed loudly, "I'm never going to wash this cheek again." True story. Needless to say, I haven't counted, but I probably washed my face a good few thousand times since then. But I've never lost interest in the wonderful educational values shared in Sesame Street, which continues to be, to this day, a longtime favorite of kids and adults alike. One of the first TV shows made specifically to teach young kids basic skills like knowing numbers, letters, and colors. And it's still full of great skits that promote friendship, equality, appreciating people's differences and abilities, and the importance of working out issues with just our words. Earlier this week, many of us learned that Dr. Lloyd Morissette Jr., one of the co-founders of the Children's Television Workshop, the organization that created Sesame Street, died at the age of 93. Dr. Morissette was an experimental psychologist who worked in the fields of psychology, education, and communication, while later in life, he became an avid philanthropist. Lloyd and his fellow co-creator, Joan Gans Clooney, started the show for two reasons. First, because children from disadvantaged backgrounds were entering school months behind their grade level. So they wanted to do their part to help close the gap so children would succeed at school. And second, being inspired by the civil rights movement, they felt it was important to teach children to show a wide variety of children from different backgrounds and cultures learning together and playing together on a regular basis. By and large, Sesame Street accomplished this well through short vignettes or skits designed to share these lessons. Come to think of it, Sesame Street, which has aired continually since 1969, can be seen as one very long story about a diverse group of kids, adults, and puppets living in New York City. Every community has its stories, and every culture has its stories as well. And as the late Rabbi Harold Schulweit taught, every religion has its master story, some core event that captures the spirit of the faith. For Christianity, it began with the birth of Jesus 2,023 years ago. For Muslims, it begins with Muhammad's journey going from Mecca to Medina in 622 of the Common Era. And for Judaism, our master story is the Exodus. Here's what it could have looked like. No real pictures from back then. The liberation of the Israelites from slavery in Egypt, and our ancestors' journey from slavery to freedom, which culminates in the giving of Torah at Mount Sinai. One unique aspect of the Jewish calendar is that it begins well before the first Jews, Abraham and Sarah, came on the scene. Instead, it begins with the creation of the world, which according to the genealogies found in the Torah, occurred 5,783 years ago. Now, for sure, we can take this with a large hunk of kosher salt, but there's a great teaching behind this, namely that we're all in this world together. And every one of us is created, as it states in Genesis, B'Tselem Elohim, created in the image of God, a universal lesson that embraces the diversity present in our world and shares the message that no one person or group is any better than the rest, which in my opinion happens to be one of the best takeaways from the folks who gave us Sesame Street. Every episode of Sesame Street begins with a racially mixed group of kids playing together. In the very first episode, I learned we're introduced to a black man named Matthew Thomas who played the role of Mr. Robinson. Later, Amelia Delgado, a Mexican-American, and Sonia Manzano, who is Puerto Rican, joined the cast. These characterize normalized interracial friendships without sharing a single word. But sometimes Sesame Street would go further, tackling racism firsthand. In one episode, Savion, a black man, and Gina, a white woman, spent some time together. Afterwards, you see Gina receiving a phone call from somebody who said that she didn't like seeing people from different races be together. Later, Gina spoke to one of the Muppet-like characters on the show, saying, "You know Telly, one of those furry guys, I think he's like pinkish. There are some really stupid people in the world who can't stand to see when people of different races are friends. Today, this episode may well be called woke by certain pundits. Nevertheless, Sesame Street persisted." In certain ways, the story of the Exodus touches on this very issue. With a new Pharaoh who comes on the scene who didn't know Joseph, his right-hand man and Hebrew dream interpreter extraordinaire. Evidently, this Pharaoh was so afraid of the growing numbers of Israelites that he chose to whittle them down to size, simply because they were Jews. And in seeing Jews as other, Pharaoh, as well as the Egyptians, could more freely treat them harshly as they were valued less than their own people. Jews are reminded of the Exodus story hundreds and hundreds of times each year. There are portions of the story found in our Shabbat and holiday prayer books, like the Mi Chamocha prayer, Who is Like You?, which includes the song Miriam, the prophet, and the women dance as the Israelites crossed the Red Sea. We also recall the Exodus every Shabbat evening as we read or chant the Shabbat Kiddush, which Jacob will do later on in the service, the blessing over the fruit of the vine. Every winter, the Exodus story is read in its entirety during the annual cycle of studying Torah. Tomorrow morning, Jacob will read from this week's Torah portion called Bo, meaning go, where Moses implores Pharaoh to, at long last, let my people go. And finally, the ritual of the Exodus is shared every Passover Seder, a meal that includes a lot of very unique customs, like reclining on our chair with little pillows, designed solely to pique the interest of the youngest kids at the table. Stories help us remember the past, but they also remind us not to repeat the injustices of the past, which happens more than we think. Examples of which include minimizing the collective experiences of others, denying the reality of what's happening right in front of somebody, or simply choosing not to share the story at all. In Judaism, there's a mitzvah or sacred obligation to remember. Positive aspects of this obligation include keeping cherished memories close to our heart, remembering loved ones who are no longer with us. At the same time, Judaism teaches us that we also need to remember more challenging times, such as the dark years of the Holocaust, the injustice of more modern-day slavery, and the inequities that we see or read about in the news. Stories are vital because they share history in a compelling way. And while we may not recall every detail of the story, likely we'll remember a story's meaning. There's a tale about the founder of the Hasidic movement of Judaism. It's called the Baal Shem Tov, or Master of the Good Name, that illustrates this well. It seemed that whenever the Baal Shem Tov had a very difficult task or job to perform, he would go to a certain place in the woods, have some time on his own, light a fire, and meditate on the secrets of the heart. And this way, his prayer was answered. A generation later, when the Maggid, or storyteller of Mezrich, faced a similar challenging task, he would go to the very same place in the woods. But upon returning, he said, "We no longer know how to light the fire, but we still say the prayer, which helps us find the answer." In the ensuing generation, when Moshe Leib of Sassov faced a challenging task, he would go to the same spot in the woods. Then, arriving back in town, he said, "We can no longer light the fire, nor do we know the secret meditation, that special prayer, but at least we know the place. So the task could still be accomplished. Finally, in the next generation, a rabbi named Israel of Rishkin, when he needed to meditate on a challenging task, he just sat down and said, "We can no longer light the fire, nor can we speak the prayer. We don't even know the place to go." Story of how it's done. The story of the Exodus teaches us to love our neighbors and to treat them with respect and dignity. It shares a message of inclusion rather than exclusion. And while we may not remember every single detail of the story, we can surely take its message to heart, as it reminds us that lifting people up is one of the most important and sacred things that we can do. Shabbat Shalom. We're going to continue now in our prayer books with the Aleinu Adoration Prayer that you'll find on page 282. Please rise, and Jacob and I will open the ark together.
Aleinu l'shabach la'adon ha'kol, la'tik gedula le'otzer bereshit, shelo asanu k'goyei haratzot, ve'lo samanu k'mishpechot ha'adama, shelo sam kelkeinu kahem, ve'gor aleinu kechol hamonam, va'anaknu korim u'mishtachavim u'modim lifnei Melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu. V'ne'emar ha'aya Adonai lemelech al kol ha'aretz bayom ha'hu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo
You'll find the words of the Mourner's Kaddish on page 294 in your prayer books, as well as on the screen, our words of praise. As we call to mind and to heart families in the period of Shloshim, the first 30 days mourning their loved ones. As we remember Deborah Gale Shapiro, friend of Lynn Rosenthal, Arnold Sherman, Hal Rosenberg, husband of Bobby Rosenberg and father of Debbie Rosenberg, Rob Edelman, husband of Janet Edelman, John Friedman, cousin of Lillian Epstein, and Stanley Franklin, uncle of Elise Cohen. We also mark the yahrzeit anniversary of passing of loved ones. On this Shabbat, we remember with love Dorothy Altman, Rose Barnett, Ann Barron, Stella Bauer, Ruth Beckman, Jack Bahard, Henry Bild, Jack Birnbaum, Cynthia Chastain, Francis B. Kodish, Dudley Davis, Eugene Deutsch, Philip Fox, Jerry Friedman, David Goldstein, Gerald Gottlieb, Florence Halpern, Judy Gale Hamrill, Hilda Herman, Rebecca Hirschman, David Herstreet, Carl Hawk, Shirley Jacobson, Dora Jacobson, Jessica Katz, Bruce Katzeff, Joseph Katzeff, Lisa Levy, Ann Catherine Margolin, Helen Matskowitz, Mac Perlman, Nicholas Polanco, Theodore Porres, Seymour Regent, Joseph Ross, Marion Shear, Benjamin Silverman, Hilda Tannenbaum, Nathan Wassoff, Anna Weiss, Margaret Witchman, and Diane Yaspan. Are there any other names to add for Yahrzeit remembrance at this time? We say Zichronam Livracha, may the memories of all of these good people continue to be a blessing in their loved ones' lives as we rise to offer the words of Mourner's Kaddish, words of praise together. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, v'yalma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayeda kol beit Yisrael, v'agalav v'isman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mivarach le'alam ulamei al-maya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shemei dekudasha b'richu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran b'yalma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Osei shalom b'mramav u'yasei shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the one who causes peace in the heavens cause peace to descend on us, Israel, and throughout the world, as we say, amen.
V'imiru, 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 amen. V'imiru,
Feel free to be seated. My pleasure to call Jacob forward once again. He'll be leading us in the Shabbat Kiddush, which of course talks about the Exodus, this being the long form of the prayer. You'll find it on page 5, Blessing over the Fruit of the Vine.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho b'chava uvratzon hinhilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit ki hu yom tehila lamikraye kodesh zecher litziahat l'mitzrayim ki vanu v'harta ve'otanu kidashta mikol hamim v'shabbat kodshecha ve'achava uvratzon kinhaltanu Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat.
Say l'chaim.
L'chaim.
L'chaim, to life. Drink away. It's grape juice, don't worry. Taking it down in its entirety. Very impressive. Indeed and indubitably. Once again, Yasher Koach, Jacob did a wonderful job leading us, as I know he'll do tomorrow morning during our Shabbat service as well. I'm going to pass out some challah for our motzi blessing over the bread. Motzi lechem min haaretz. We give thanks to God for bread. Our voices rise in song together as our joyful prayer is said. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Say b'tei avon, enjoy. likes that challah. It's good challah today, really is.
Good. Very good.
You know, every week there's, sometimes a little bit of difference, but this one's
good.
solid. It's thick, it's soft, it's chewy, it's sweet. These are all the things that you're looking for when you're looking for a good challah. Or at least when I'm looking for a good challah. My pleasure at this time to call forward our Media Past President, Rick Katzeff, to share some Shabbat announcements with all of us.
Thank you, Rabbi. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. We want to thank Rabbi Matt, Allison, and Joy for helping warm us up tonight on a very cold Florida night. It was a very wonderful service, and we thank you. Also, a mazel tov to Jacob for your bar mitzvah, and the Dowman family for this great event in your life, as well as the mitzvah of the naming of your daughter, Lauren. That was very nice. Mazel tov. A few other announcements. The United Faith Walk for Peace will take place on January 29th at 2 p.m. at Pioneer Park in Dunedin. That's in the center of downtown Dunedin off Main Street. Also, this year's Mitzvah Day is being coordinated by the Social Action Committee, Bill Ross. Thank you, Bill. And the religious school will take place on February 12th. There's a lot of great activities for kids and adults, and if you wish to participate, please let Bill know or the temple office. Also, last but not least, the important fundraiser this year is going to be on Monday, February 27th. It's a very important part of our congregation, helps fund our operating of our temple, and we need everyone's support to be as generous as possible. And in addition to that, it's going to be a fun night. We're going to be having this 6-man vocal band, 613, anchored by a strong Jewish identity, 613, a lot of numbers here, and they'll bring a lot of really good energy, and it should be a really fun night. So please mark your calendars if you haven't done already, and please be as generous as possible. We also, again, want to thank the Dowman family for sponsoring our Owner Shabbat tonight, and hope to see everyone after services. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you.
Shabbat Shalom.
Many thanks to our tech crew this evening, the Skalkas in the back. We couldn't do it without you. And for those of you who are listening from back home, their assistance, as well as all the other volunteers who help us with tech, is invaluable each and every week. If you want to listen to some of the videos or hear some of the music, they do a lot of awesome medleys with modern day pop music. The website is SIX and then 13.com. They're a really great band. We're going to, for our closing song, sing a prayer of peace, O say shalom together. O say shalom bimroma, hu say shalom aleinu. O say shalom bimroma, hu say shalom aleinu. O say shalom bimroma, hu say shalom aleinu. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom. we'll conclude with a prayer for our health and well-being. You'll find it right on the screen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu al shmirat hanefesh, for the mitzvah and sacred obligation to protect our lives and stay healthy, and all of you to stay healthy around us in our community. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you so much for being here, those who are here in person, and all of you back home. Until next time. Join us for the Oneg.